Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm an interviewer, author, journalist, and broadcaster. And what you're about to hear is one of the 1,400 interviews I did over a 30-year period for nearly all major media outlets in Ireland. But please allow for the fact that many of the interviews were done for the print media and recorded on cassette tape. So some are, let's say, sonically challenged. But sonic consideration should give way to historical significance, I believe. And I'm glad to say that at least some powers that be and RTE Radio 1 agreed with me on this and broadcast between 2015 and 2018 many of my interviews in a series called The Joe Jackson Tapes Revisited. What follows is a programme I was going to broadcast in that series, but never did. Nor did I use in the series my tapes of two major interviews I did with Bob Geldof in 1989 and in 2001. But I do include them and a backstory in my ebook, Bob Geldof, The Joe Jackson Interviews Plus. I've also drawn on both for podcasts about Geldof. In one, he responds angrily to my questions about how, after Paula's death, he depicted her as mutton dressed in lamb, etc., in a song. Bob said, I knew nothing about Paula or their story other than guff, as he puts it, that I read in newspapers. I reminded him that I interviewed Paula in 1993 and was so moved by her death that I asked a magazine editor to allow me to write an obituary and appreciation of the woman. Either way, what follows is the first hour of that chat Paula Yates and I had in 1993 to coincide with the release of her book, Village People. The article is available on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com. The Bob Geldof ebook is available from Amazon, Apple iBooks, Barnes & Noble.
And we have to start off, of course, because you know how this is more than just music.
Let me just adjust my trousers into a sort of vague.
Very effective.
Oh no. No, this was my smart, The Woman's Way.
Oh, was that it? Yeah. That's very effective.
My nice, yeah.
Do they take... Oh, not shots, not photographs.
No, I
just
don't do pictures for anybody.
I know, I don't.
Fuck
you don't?
that, no.
No, but I can get sent to batches, no problem with me.
There's a million, thousand pictures to me. Yes,
Okay, so there's the serious political question first about Napoleon's appendage for 200 quid.
I know, isn't that bizarre?
Is it true?
Have you read the actual book or
Yes,
have you just
I've read
the
book.
proofs?
I've read the book.
The book?
Yeah.
The book?
Yeah.
Oh, it's true, that is true. They sold Napoleon's dick at Christie's, South Kent, for 200 quid, and I missed it. And it's like the most awful thing, because even just thinking about it now, it makes me annoyed. Because imagine having that.
Well, why would you have wanted it?
I would have loved to have had Napoleon's dick.
In any way, shape or form?
No, shriveled on my coffee table is how I would have liked to have had it.
And
Don't you think that's the most fantastic thing to have?
Well, I personally can think of a better kind of...
No, it's like having Tennyson's daybed.
Yeah.
Which also came up.
Yeah.
And, all that sort of... I like all that idea of this has been touched by Byron.
How did his dick come up, if one can use the phrase, for sale for £200?
Because I think that he was... I think what happened was, he had that illness where everything was atrophying badly.
Oh, right.
So I think he basically literally fell apart upon his death.
Oh.
And his dick was made off with.
If you had a second choice to Napoleon's, whose would you want?
Whose was I want? On my coffee table. I've got St. Perbald's knee bone.
Is that a good compensation?
No, Bob tried to make it assuage me. Who would I have? I suppose Evelyn Wars would be quite nice.
Yeah. Okay. You see something, there's an image in it of the Queen Mother sounding as though she's talking through her mouth like a hen's bottom. That's not a particularly nice thing to say, is it? Won't go down well with your neighbours.
Why?
Will it?
What about the Queen Mother?
Talking, sounding as if she's talking
Did I say that?
through her mouth like a hen's bottom.
Did I actually say that?
You did. I quote your own writing.
Gosh, how weird. I obviously wrote that during the early hours of a morning when it was particularly chilly and unpleasant in the porter cabin where I work. And normally I wouldn't say anything about the royal family as I'm such a fervent royalist.
That's what one had suspected. So how did that
I
sneak
would be,
by?
wouldn't I?
Yeah, how did that sneak by your editor?
I don't know how that snuck by. I can't even remember. I'm thinking, gosh, what's that about the Queen Mother, who I revere above all women?
It's going to end up on t-shirts and all that with your name at the end of it.
Oh, don't.
She speaks.
Well, that'll be my big quote. People like James Joyce will have really good ones, and I'll have that. That'll be my fucking line for posterity. Oh, shut up.
Okay, so but do you have to, when you're writing it, do you have to worry about your neighbours in Kent and all
No,
that?
I
How they're
didn't,
going to take elements of this book, which are a little bit
Are you sure you've read
left
the actual
afield?
book? You've not read the proofs?
I read a hardback.
Really? How bizarre. No, my neighbours are actually really, really, really sweet. They're all quite old, but they're really, really... Here's the weird drink.
Thank you very much.
No,
I
my
am
neighbours
different.
are all quite old, and they're really, really nice, and they're not pissed off at all, and all that tabloid crap is basically what it is, tabloid
Which
crap.
tabloid crap
Oh, the
response?
endless stuff, that the neighbours are angry, or...
Is that what they're saying now, but not about the book?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice
They
that,
keep
no.
saying the neighbours are angry about the book, which they're not.
Okay.
They all, in fact, rang me up and said they wept with laughter.
What are they supposed to be angry at? The depictions of themselves?
No, because they're not, it's not real, and they can tell it's not real. They all had advanced copies. They're meant to be angry that it's going to be like Toujours Provence, because our local Sainsbury's ordered 40 extra cheese baps to cope with the media interest.
All right.
And so they're meant to be up in arms because of these 40 extra cheese baps. Only in England could you have a story about Sainsbury's having 40 extra cheese baps to cope with media interest.
Right. But surely they would see you as a bit of an iconoclastic woman, a bit of a kind of strange bird anyway.
No, they're very used
What-
to me after 11 years, so
But
it
what-
doesn't really enter into it.
It doesn't.
No, it truly doesn't. I'm not just saying that in the, hey, I'm so normal when I'm at home. But their children
have
play
they-
with my children, and it's just that leveler of, yes, we're just neighbours.
But it couldn't have always been like that. When you first went down there at the heat of all those tabloid stories and the stories about your father and Bob and you, surely they must have treated you as kind of
What, last
freaks from the
week?
city. No, 11 years ago.
11 years ago. There
When you
weren't
first went
stories about
down.
my father then.
Well, were they not like
No,
in the
20
early
years
80s?
ago there were stories about my father. 11 years ago there weren't really stories about
Well,
us.
about yourself and Bob?
No,
So they opened their arms and embraced
Yeah, hey, I know it's
Strange.
not... It's not...
what one would expect.
What you'd expect. No, but they did, and it's been completely heavenly. It really has been.
But this book isn't exactly a heavenly depiction. It's kind of
I
it's
think it kind of
subversive. It is in a way, but there's a lot of piss taken there. Whether it's
It's because I can't help myself.
right.
I just can't. I
So
can't
what-
help it.
So what's the mix? Beatrix Potter on acid meets Jilly Cooper? And
No, it's not Jilly Cooper at all. There's no sex, there's no shopping, there's no modern life.
Hey! Somebody jumps on the back of a plumber, and frenziedly. Was
Please,
that
it's
another
so
one of these
ridiculous.
morning ones?
It's so ridiculous. How could anyone take that seriously as sex? It's not sex. It's just ridiculous.
Molestation.
It's ridiculous. It's
Is it true? Or was it
yeah,
you?
that's true.
It
My
was
friend
you?
did do that. No, it wasn't me. I've always lived with Bob, but it was true. What am I trying to say to you? I can't actually...
But that could be a shocking image to some of your neighbours. This poor
please.
plumber.
No, because it's also just funny.
So light.
Yeah. What is it? It's like it's not like Julie Cooper, and it's not like anyone recent. It's meant to be like a book that was written in 1942.
Which is what?
I don't know if I was really.
Oh, like a book. If
like
it was
a
written at that
book,
point,
yes.
not a specific
As
title.
if it had been written sort of between the wars, where people wore tweed skirts, and
With all the modern kind of additions, such as
There's
clouds that
modern-
look like Elvis and Bob Dylan
Yeah,
records and
yeah.
yeah.
Because there has to be, because it isn't written between the wars. I would love it to have been written between the wars rather than in a Portakabin in 1993.
Right.
But certainly my role model for the book was absolutely those country books that are like set pieces, like the Country House Murder books. I like the idea of it being such a set piece where there are certain characters and certain scenes that have to appear.
Right. So
And it's subversive only in the sense that everything that I've written has to have some form of subtext, simply because that's how it ends up. So when I did the baby book, it certainly had a subtext to it that annoyed the arse off half the population.
which
And this-
was
Because it was basically a polemic about whether one should leave one's children when
Sure.
they're young.
right.
That was essentially what it was, but it was very frothy, and most of the book was funny.
The response to it wasn't frothy, particularly
No,
from
it wasn't
specific
particularly frothy, but it was
feminists.
interesting. No, I don't think it was feminist. I don't think that's right. Feminists.
The feminist response
The
wasn't
feminist
anti.
response was incredibly good to that book, because I suppose in a funny sort of way that book was a culmination of the 20 or 30 years of feminism where we worked from the position my mother would have been at, which was feminism where you did whatever you could just for yourself and hopefully everyone was happy because you were so happy. That
Right.
was probably my mother's feminism, because
Right.
she was just struggling to get what she needed. And I suppose they were kind of groundbreakers in the 60s. And certainly now I think it's more a questioning thing, because it's evolved into a situation where for most people, all feminism has done is given them the right to do it all rather than have it all. And I think there's increasing amounts of women questioning what actually is having it all. Because it's all this crap you read about in women's magazines that when you've got it doesn't necessarily make you feel, fulfilled.
But a popular reading of what you were saying was that women should go back to the traditional role, be mothers, stay at home, raise the children. Whether people only read the controversy and read the debates and the letters.
Yeah, they probably read the fucking Daily Mail, And by the time it's been filtered down to the Daily Mail, it has to be black and white. Every argument in England now has to be reduced to the Daily Mail's opinion, which is A, it's normally pretty puerile, B, it's sort of like a fascist state where if you say anything about the family, you are dived upon because you're not allowed to voice any opinion. Politically correct or non-politically correct, you're just not supposed to say anything. And I think the other problem is that in my position, because I was famous for being quite glamorous, I was in this immediate position where it was me against working women, because I think they love doing that with women.
Sure.
They like it to be two camps. And B, who does she think she is? She's so rich, she's so privileged.
Right. But it was also an element of perceived hypocrisy in you saying, being seen
Not
to be
if
saying...
they'd read the book.
Right, but that's a notion that has passed down, and certainly the response among people when I said I was talking to you was find out exactly what she meant on that. You are out working, you obviously have nannies, you obviously are up at dawn, so you could hardly be seen as the traditional mother, and you never were, really. So that was perceived
My position in the book was absolutely that in a perfect world, nobody would work at all if most people would not work at all if they have a child under 5, which is actually a pretty small time span in your life. That 5 years when they're little and they're desperate, for you, and you have to be there.
Right.
And in a perfect world, somebody like me who pays huge amounts of taxes, I would quite happily have it that those taxes went towards other women being put in a better position, that if they choose to stay at home with their children, they are able to, rather than have this next generation entirely raised by people paid to do so. I do believe mothering is something you do from your soul rather than being paid. Having said that, the government does nothing. It could quite easily have tax deductions instead of all the nonsense they talk about, creches. They could easily have tax deductions for men who support a partner at home.
Mm-hmm.
Quite easily they could do that, whether they're married or not.
Right.
They could do a million things that they do in other countries. Like in America, most large companies have systems whereby once you have a child, you can either give up work for 5 years if you choose to do so, and you are guaranteed your job back at the end of those 5 years, or you work flexi-time with another person who has a child. I've always said part-time work is the perfect situation, because in part-time work, you still have your finger in, so you kind of feel like you're not kind of just totally giving up your life.
Right.
If you choose to do that. And you also are giving your child, children do have some rights. It's not just women who have rights.
Mm-hmm.
And my position is entirely because I was left as a child all the time. I speak
You
from
left
experience. Alone. Yes, I speak from experience of both an absentee parent, a one-parent family, and a mother that left me in order to pursue her career.
Right.
I didn't speak from the position of me now. I certainly spoke from the position of me then, which is why I'm so hung up on it.
And you wouldn't want what you said to be appropriated by those who see, like Thatcher's Britain, back to Victorian values, Victorian family values.
It's nothing to do with that.
But that's how you can see it was.
I don't see it in any way about that. What I see it as is most women do not have jobs that are this all-encompassing gratification, but they do if they have a child. They actually do.
That is the job.
That's the most... It makes you feel like this wonderful, wonderful thing is happening. But your fucking job down in Sainsbury's or as secretary doesn't make you feel like that. And yet the media makes out that the gratification and how you justify yourself as a person is what you do for your job. Not the fact that you're a mother or you're nurturing somebody else.
But
do you not agree with me?
I do, but I also...
Therefore, and the book was not about whether women should work, was about women wanting to be at home and what one could do, anyone could do, whether the whole thing should be addressed, and it certainly was because of the book,
right.
Of the fact governments could do more, right. And employers could do more to make it possible for women to work more part-time, or at least flexibly.
There also are those women who wouldn't place perhaps as much emphasis on defining themselves through having a child as you and others might. They might want to be defined.
Children. They don't need to have children. It's not, you don't have to have a baby. But if you have a baby, I think most people, and I speak from a lot of experience of lots of people with babies that wrote to me, they do want to be with them. It's kind of lucky that nature has constructed it like that, and it seems a pity.
How did you feel that process?
As for people saying I'm a hypocrite, How can they say that? I deliberately get up at 3 in the fucking morning so that my working day is finished at 9 o'clock. My money is certainly
Sure.
where my mouth is, and my discipline certainly is.
So
I have
finished at
been
9
tailed.
a.m.
I have been tailed by the sun trying to prove that I, spent 4 minutes away from my children. That is not the
I know.
point. That is just tabloid shit. And it's the case in any time you express an opinion, whether it's about this or anything, where the tabloids turn it into this kind
Reduce
of
it.
crap.
Yeah.
Crap, suddenly.
That element, how strong an element in moving away from London was that, because I did interview Bob some years ago about the times the tabloids pursued you and Fifi down the street and made her fearful of having her photograph taken, if I remember correctly, knocking on the door 3 times in a row at night.
Flat opposite, rented with the camera on us.
Oh, right, yeah. So he was afraid that would have a long-term effect on Fifi and that it had on you. Did that turn out to be true? I talked to him 5 years ago.
I don't know. I think my children have a healthy kind of healthy disdain of the papers, in that they don't believe anything they read and question everything they read. I think that's a good attitude, whether it's about a personality or about a war or about anything. So she is a quite grown up. Well, she's not grown up. She's 10. She's nearly 11. She certainly questions what she reads, but I think that's but I don't think it's harmed her in other ways.
No psychological pressure.
She just doesn't like them near her. But then,
and yourself?
I think anyone who's experienced. No, I.
You what? You weren't damaged by that kind of hounding?
I loathe them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Continuing to stay.
No, not disdain. I loathe.
Continuing loathing. Has it not eased though over the years? Have you not finally said?
No, but I've had it since I was 14. I had it with my father.
Alright.
You see, my father was kind of destroyed by the news of the world. His
really
life was destroyed.
Was it?
Yes.
By the way they broke that story,
Yes.
by the way they went on
he
that
was
story.
destroyed by it.
Destroyed's a big word.
No, he was destroyed by it.
By them
He really was.
By them going public with it?
Well, I don't know whether you know anything about my
presented
father.
it?
He won the first case ever against the press for persecution. He had more column inches than the Vietnamese War in the English papers.
Right.
It's remarkable for one person to go on a holiday to Gran Canaria and get more column inches than the Vietnamese War. And I think it's a truly English thing. So I had it from being 14 or 15 years old, that thing where you know what it's like to be truly paranoid. And I don't think it's to do with fame. I think it's to do with anyone who is put under that kind of focus. It's not a thing because I was famous, because he was famous. It's that feeling of everyone has a right to some secrecy, some privacy.
Were you hounded then at 14 by them as a result of that story?
Yeah.
They followed you for clothes, for pictures and all that stuff?
I can remember sitting in my bedroom and they were up a ladder pushing pieces of paper through the cracks in the windows.
Wanting what? What's on
Wanting
the
me
piece of
to
paper?
talk to them about my father when
Get
I was
a quote.
14. So I had been there and...
Did you retain a faith in your father? Did you stand by him through that? Or were you shaken by what was exposed?
Oh no, I've never ever... I don't read the tabloids and I don't believe what's in them, and I would never ever dream of questioning somebody about what was written about them.
But at 14, were you that wise to know not to?
Yeah.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's not funny.
Well, a lot of
Because it's
people,
weird.
a lot of people could find that their belief in the family unit, the father, the mother, whoever, was totally fragmented when something like that happens at 14.
My relationship with my parents was totally fragmented then anyway.
All right.
But I have a real sense of loyalty to people when it is a situation of trauma.
Right. Particularly induced or accelerated by
Anything.
tabloid newspapers and that.
I think you feel a great compassion for it. I don't know. No, I'm quite loyal, so maybe that's been helpful.
Do you feel you and Bob and the children were violated totally through the years by that kind of
I think
pressure?
that we have... no, because we haven't been... it's not made any difference to me and Bob, has it?
I don't know. I mean,
It's not made any difference to me and Bob.
Really?
17 years later, you know? It's still the strongest unit I've ever come across.
the relationship.
The strongest thing I've ever come across, ever. No matter what. No matter what ever happens. But the violation was that it was horrible for him, I think, when people, like when they ran the picture when I was pregnant, and all the stuff that's in his biography.
Yeah, well,
Like,
a lot of that is known in tabloids. A lot of that, and I remember feeling disgusted at the music press. I mean, some
Yeah.
of those comments from Melody Maker's famous
yeah.
quotes, "One Geldof bastard is
Bastard is
enough."
enough.
Hey, we're
When I
talking.
was very pregnant, and another one did a picture of me, and it was abortion of the year.
Oh
I was
yeah,
very,
that
very
was
pregnant.
Sounds.
Yeah.
Sounds magazine. I'm not
So,
likely to
so
forget
those
that.
things stick out in my mind because they were just so horrible. They go beyond it being, oh, they've said this about me.
I know.
They became.
But what was your response when you read that, or did he tell you there's this headline in a paper, or did you pick it
I
up,
just
or
used to
somebody
cry
handed
and
it to
cry and cry because I was pregnant. You know, people are my first baby, and
you? Yeah.
you're just so vulnerable.
But didn't you want to kill somebody? Didn't you want to sue them, fuck them some way, or I mean, surely you wanted to retaliate.
No, I've never wanted to.
Did you not?
I've never had the strength to fight back.
Really? You seem like a strong woman.
Yeah, but I just can't deal with it. I really,
Is that just at that point because that attack was so kind of
No,
unmitigated and merciless?
Well, I
or
don't
what?
know how I'd respond now, because I'm older and it's different when you're older. But I certainly think when I was very young, it used to just be so awful. I used to be so wounded by it that I would never have probably had the strength to pursue it.
But wasn't it Bob who said at the time if anybody damaged his children, he'd go out and kill them? He'd find them, track them down. He said that at I think it was a press conference about child abuse or something.
I don't know.
Remember that? It was here, and there was a lot of debate over that. Like
It's
people
not the
saying,
same thing.
if a child is abused, you might want to respond that way.
I don't know. You'd have to talk to Bob. I don't know.
Right,
It's not the
right.
same thing.
Right.
The minute you let the tabloids become that important, where you feel like that, they're really getting to you. And I'm fucked if they're going to get to me that much.
Right.
But having said that, I don't read it and I don't see it, and I'm very careful never to read them or see them. You could tell me any story of the last 5 years about anyone, and I probably won't know it.
And the same with your children, you keep it away from them?
Oh God,
Those
yeah, I
kind of
think it's
stories?
contaminating. I think it's contaminating for anyone, regardless of who it's about or what it's about. I don't think their agenda's very hidden anymore.
Right.
They're all pretty horrid.
Do you see any tabloidization of the quality papers
Well,
in
of
the
course
same
there
way?
is. It's quite obvious
the
what's
Sunday
happening. The
Times
Sunday
and-
Times is no different anymore, except it has a veneer of absolute respectability, which in a way makes it more frightening.
Have you stopped reading that too? Those two? You have? What do you read?
I read The Independent and I read The Telegraph.
You
And
try-
I'm never in The Independent or The Telegraph, which is my kind of a paper.
Right.
But so I do think, it's been horrible.
Well,
It's been horrible, but it's avoidable. And I certainly, if I suddenly went downstairs and a big headline saying, you'd shagged a dog, I suddenly wouldn't go, did you really shag a dog?
that's how they'd phrase it, yeah. Okay.
Well, they'd say you'd bonked it. Because they always have
Well, that would
bonk.
be it,
Isn't that the
yeah.
worst word?
Yeah, I know,
Like,
isn't it?
bonk, it just makes me crazy.
Yeah, it's like a hammer on the head.
That's like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Okay, I'm going to have to get back to something light. Is Daniel Day-Lewis the person you'd most like to bonk in a fantasy figure?
No, not at all. I can barely speak to Daniel Day-Lewis.
You've met him?
I know him,
Right.
and I can't speak to him at all.
Are you silenced by his beauty?
No, I'm not silenced by his beauty. I'm silenced by his disdain.
For who?
Just, he has that wonderful face, and sometimes he just looks so disdainful, and always my lip always gets stuck to my teeth when I'm talking to him, and it makes me so self-conscious. That's why I did that whole chapter, because I have been that woman where I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking about his sweet little wing-collared shirts, and I just think, oh, snake. And then I start talking nonsense. And the conversation that's in the book is a conversation I've had with Daniel, where at one point I actually said to him, how could you kiss that man in my beautiful laundrette? Can you believe I said that? And then I just thought, what am I saying? And I completely lost track of saying anything that made sense.
That wasn't politically correct, was it?
And I'm not even like that. At one point I think I spoke Swahili to him. I just thought, what the fuck am I saying? I was praying for Bob to get back, make it all better.
But what is it about his characteristics? What is it about
I
his...
don't know, I think maybe it's his ability, as I said, to chew and suck his cheeks in at the same time.
That's a great one, isn't it? Highly effective. You'll have everybody practicing it over dinner.
I think that's it. I think maybe it is. I'm silenced by his beauty, but I've never realised it. But I don't think it's that. It's some...
You wouldn't like it to be that, would you?
No.
Wouldn't do
'Cause
if
I
he
never
was-
get silenced by beauty.
It wouldn't do if he was sitting on the bed, would it?
Oh, I couldn't have him on the bed. I'd die. I'd be hyperventilating. I'd have to have a bag, because I always hyperventilate really badly, and I'd have to have a bag to blow into.
I'm going to write to the television station and say that's who the
No.
next guest should be.
I just couldn't stand the pressure. trying to speak sense to Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, I know a lot of people who respond the same way to him.
Yeah, but it's not for. It's not for reasons. I mean, I know he's the most beautiful man on earth, but I think he's very like Bob, don't you? They went to the Oscars
comment.
together. They went
Did
to
they?
the Oscars together, and they both had the same suit and their hair.
Where are you going to go?
tied
The
back.
Byronic, wiping the spit
Byronic
ironically
twins.
from his.
The Byronic twins they were at the Oscars, and I remember thinking they were just the most sweetest thing I'd ever seen.
Show me how you wipe spit ironically from one's cheek.
I don't know,
That's the
only Bob
quote.
can do it.
Right. But are you besotted, or as a woman, by that rather stereotypical image of male beauty?
No, I like Take That.
Yeah. Boys,
Boys.
they're your current fantasy figures.
No, not really, because I know them. That kind of blows it, doesn't it, when you know people? I don't really have fantasy figures.
Do you not?
Not really, no. No, I don't.
But is that not part of the game in the breakfast show and interviewing some of
No.
the people you would have?
No.
I mean,
not
that's
at
part of
all.
what.
No, we've never had anyone on that was
No?
somebody that I would.
Want on your mantelpiece
No.
alongside Napoleon.
Gosh, no.
Not
no.
even Leslie Phillips.
No.
Really?
No.
Well, why have you drawn that line? I mean, hasn't Tom Jones been there and people like that, all those so-called sex symbols?
Yeah,
Who would
they're
have
all
the same-
really nice and sweet and
But some of
adorable.
those would have the same effect like Jones would on certain women that Day-Lewis has on you.
No, but that would be because they fancied him.
Right.
I don't. That's not my problem with Daniel.
It's something else.
Yes, it's something
Inexplicable.
hideous, probably from my boarding school days.
Yeah, explain.
Just brings out the cunt in me. I don't know, but it's not because I'm,
Dumbstruck
Be
by
careful, he's
longing.
going to fucking read this. He lives here half the time. I don't want to say any more. Poor Daniel, he's reading this and he's thinking, God, she even talked nonsense in her interview.
Well, you're dumbstruck by longing. Can we say that? No.
No, because it isn't that. It might be if it was Take That, but not Daniel.
Is that? Did you watch Jermaine Gray's program on ageism, youthism, and all that last Wednesday?
No, I don't
Did you
watch
see that
television.
stuff? Do you not watch any of that stuff? Okay, so you avoid that.
Is that with Joanna Lumley?
Yeah,
I flicked over and I saw a second of it.
you didn't stick with it.
No, because it was on Lade.
Was
like
that
10?
Walls? No, 9. Well, that was the first half hour.
Shit.
9 to 9:30. It was very good. There's a lot of newspaper articles came out of it. But what about that idea? I mean, there's an element in the book where some of your characters will fancy younger men.
Do they? Fucking hell, where?
Well, maybe I didn't read the right.
Where?
Who was the guy? Dorka?
Oh, what, yeah.
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 Okay. So take that as coming true. See, you're surprised I did read it.
Yeah, you did. Oh, more than I have. By the
It
end of this,
seems
you'll
to be.
be.
It seems to be. I'll go out and do the
I'm
interviews.
obviously having
Yeah.
some kind of acid flashback.
I'll do the
Fucking
interviews
hell.
in future. Okay. No, well, that element, she was talking about that, the way the sex symbol thing is turned around, and older women can prefer younger boys or whatever. I mean, do you go along with politics in that?
What, the older women can fancy younger boys?
Yeah, the way things have been turned around. Like, I actually talked to Lulu about being with Take That
Oh, what
on
did
that
she say?
video. and
Switch the
she's-
tape off and let's hear all the details. Who was the best snog?
Yeah, that's good from the interview. But she was saying that would have been a total turnabout. And when she was 14, that she was to be the teenage sex symbol, but now she can be 44 and be fancying somebody who's 18 or 19 or 17, and it's
Yeah,
all
but
quite
she's a
legit.
goddess.
She's
It's
goddess.
slightly different if you're a ruined drag.
Like, who's a ruined drag?
I don't know, but I think it would be. Because women, they still, are so hung up once they're getting older on the fact that the men are getting older and getting more beautiful, but they are not.
Are you?
I think that's very difficult.
Are you? Because there's a part in the book where you say having babies, your kind of feminine mystique plummets. God, I even remember quotes like that. Don't you? Is that a feeling you have
I think it's...
personally?
I don't know. I'm trying to think whether it's real, and I think that, or whether I just put it in because I had a good joke that I could follow it on with.
That's a nice sincerity in writing.
Not
But do you
trying to be
no.
funny all the
Yeah, I
time.
know. Oh no, I know. Yeah, but do you feel that?
I think it's difficult as I get older to realise that every day Bob gets more good looking.
You really feel that, do you?
Yeah. And it's difficult to come to terms with slightly falling apart.
But do you really believe that about yourself? Are you buying that
Yeah,
kind of over
course.
30, coming up to 40, whatever? I really start to become.
Well, I've had 3 children. Of course, there's bits of me that are falling apart.
But need it necessarily follow that then it becomes unattractive, that you then become physically, sexually unattractive?
No, I think that what the case is that women expect themselves to be perfect. It's entirely internalized with women. I don't think, I don't believe all this stuff about women dressing for men
Right.
or
Okay.
anything. I think women entirely for themselves. It's everything, everything's in your head, isn't it? It's like one day you wake up, you're a goddess. The next day you look exactly the fucking same, and you're the biggest ankle snapper that ever walked on God's earth. It's entirely internalized, and it's entirely dependent on weird things in your head. So no, I don't really believe that, but I think it's harder for women getting older because that just is.
So how are you going to feel then in 5 years? I mean, do you feel this is your faith and confidence is going to, if you
Well, I
think,
think
if you
it's
think,
pretty cool actually, because I seem to be getting better as well. But I'm obviously in tune with the masculine in my character.
is that what it is? Okay, that's my reading of it, and I'm sticking with that, says she.
I'm not very worried myself.
Are you
I must
not?
say no. Maybe I'm very arrogant. Oh God, does that sound
Yeah, but you
really
see,
arrogant?
no, it doesn't. But it is a question because, particularly, like I talked to, it was just coincidence recently, Naomi Campbell with Ari Adam and Ali Reed Bono, and there is a big question of the male being the male rock star sex symbol, and the woman feeling she has to compete somewhere along the way.
No.
Then you get to a certain age, and you feel I can't do this anymore. I'm going to really lose my hold on this marriage.
No, because I probably, well, in my case, I don't think Bob was ever with me for those reasons. He was with me because because of my, I'm not going to say it because when it's in black and white, I'm going to look like a cunt.
Because of your what? He
Because I was
said humor,
certainly
intelligence.
verbally fast on my feet.
Right.
So certainly the speed of my thought processes has always been more attractive than, whether I had 24-inch hips.
Right. So
So I don't feel unduly worried from that point of view.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again, and thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. And remember, if you want to read my Bob Geldof ebook, The Joe Jackson Interviews Plus, it's available from Amazon, Apple, iBooks, and so on. And the Paula Yates interview is on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.